Hey, this is Sean. I've been working on my game. I'll quickly give you a quick look at what it looks like, and then I'll explain all the stuff that I've done this week. So firstly, like, it's similar to Pikmin. I'm using Unity to make it, and I've got these little guys that you can select. Can't throw them yet, but you can jump. You can stop them following you, call them again, stop them. You got this kind of 3D camera. You can aim at monsters and parts of the world, and you can jump. You can reorient the camera, similar to Zelda and Pikmin. You can use this, which is like a interactable portal. Put the modal there, so you can go to another level, and then you can come back. And you can show the pause menu, and you can go to the main menu. It's just got placeholder settings, and then we can quit. And file select is just placeholder. All right. So, I will go through what the things that I did. So, firstly, I finished my game pitch. So here's the pitch. Working title: Slugwitch. You are Nell, a girl. You found a cabin in the woods. It's a witch's cabin, and a wand that controls slugs. You must heal monsters and push back a curse. So the promise is that it's a fantasy medical adventure, third-person action puzzle management, quirky 1990s cartoon mood. And you'll manage minions, heal monsters, and defeat evil. And some key reference is Pikmin and Roald Dahl. So Pikmin for mechanics, Roald Dahl for mood. Storyline would be while you are on a camping trip, Nell finds an injured monster in the woods. Slugs appear and give her a wand. The wand controls the slugs. The slugs can carry things and do tasks. Nell is taken to a witch's hut in the woods. The witch is Hogvelda, and her familiar, a cockroach, explains that she went out to buy lard and never returned. The 4 elder monsters are sick. If they are healed, Nell can summon Hogvelda. Nell coordinates the slugs to help heal monsters and fix what's broken and push back the curse. Nell summons Hogvelda, who turns up and says, "Well done, finish the job." So Nell goes back forth to the source of the curse and breaks it. So those are the key characters. The slugs are your minions. And some ideas for progression, not really relevant at the moment, but there are things that make the game feel like it's changing over time. And then my deadlines and deliverables. So right now, I'm in the prototype phase. Pre-prod should have finished on the 21st, but I pretty much did this pitch and then decided it's time to get straight into prototyping. And you can see how prototype, I have about 2 more weeks, and the goal is to get all the systems done in one level so that you can feel what it's like to play and no art. And then gradually at each step, I improve the scope. So alpha will include all the content but no art, and then beta will have everything, and then release will have some fixes. And always, obviously, at this one here, implementing content is going to need a lot of systems tweaked, or a few extra systems added, so I can come back here and add more stuff. And the same with art. When I get to the art, I might find that there's some animation systems or some UI systems that I need. So that's fine. And this is all under my alias of Oddberry, which is Strange Sweet Games. That's what I make. All right. So I've been using Trello to keep track of what I did. And the first thing I did was scenes and loading. So I have this hub scene, and then I created levels A, B, C, D, E, because I don't have names for them yet. But generally, I thought about A as being grass, B is dry desert, C is icy, and D is a volcano or something hot, like fire. And then E is some kind of void. And those are pretty classic video game tropes. I did very much the same level biomes for my wizard game, and it worked well. So I might do it again. Back to the hub. So right now the hub is just this house, which might be the witch's house. And we've got these little balls which are representing portals. But, you know, in the final result, in the final game, they would be parts of the world, like gates or doors, you know. And then, yeah, so that's how I load the levels, and that's using the main menu system to load. And it's quite rigid in that I go through a system of load and then unload a level. I only have one level in memory at a time. Unload, load. Now those load times are fake because I just wanted to see them instead of them flashing past. So I've added extra time that's not real. What else? So I did the main menu. That's just a very basic placeholder. And then I've got the game states. So you can go from play to pause. I did input modes. So in the input system that I made, here's what my actions look like. I have two input modes, play and menu. So currently play supports PC and gamepad. The menu is only PC at the moment, although I haven't even tested it with gamepad much. So basically that's input switching. So when you're in a menu, like that, you can see how it's using mouse, but no other keys are working. The player won't be moving around. And then when you're back in the game, it's got keyboard and mouse, or also gamepad controls, which are a bit I would need different sensitivity for gamepad. All right, what else did I do? So going from pause back to the main menu, that includes pausing the time, and then pause to the hub and pause to quitting the game. That's just basic stuff that just makes the app easy to use so that it's shippable instead of getting people stuck like that. What else? So level title card. When I made the level switching, I just wanted a simple way to show what level you've entered. So that's why when I start the level, it shows that word in the middle there, hub. And if I go to another level, there we go, level B, like that. Time scale control, that's just for pausing. Props in each level. I just added some buildings for a bit of scale and so that they don't feel totally empty, just to help me, you know, get my bearings on what level I'm in. The player model. So this is a free female character model that came with a free animation pack. I did play around and look around for something cheap that would be useful as a placeholder, but it wasn't final art, and I didn't want to get distracted by having a character model that is not really what I want, you know, because I have I want to make the character look good. So while I'm in this prototyping phase, I'll stick to my scope and say no art. This is my character. I just made her a bit chunkier using a shader. That's why she looks a bit thick. And I made her head a bit bigger, just so that she looks more like a child. And then the animations are from the same pack. And jumps a bit. The jump animation's obviously a bit shit. Okay, and then play of movement. Obviously, it's got 3 states: idle, run, jump, or airborne. Player animation, I did that. Skip to level debug. I just made a simple tick box so that when I'm testing, I can just say skip to hub. And now every time I click play, it'll just go straight to the hub. So it's skipping the main menu. Any day now. Yeah, there we go. See how it skips through it all. And I thought I had a bug, but actually it was just that debug mode kicking in. All right, so player footstep audio. Yep, you can see that when I'm walking, footsteps. And that's just by opening up the player animation. I'll just quickly jump to it. So the run animation. And you can see how I've added these step events so that at that particular point in the animation, it triggers something on a script, and that plays an audio file. Coming into this project, I did already have the audio system imported, and I'm using the plugin called Sonity. So audio was pretty easy. All right, next. I added placeholder, monster, and minions. Yeah, this is a fun little bit. So I'll just make it bigger. So these minions are little men with little characters with their arms shrunk to 0. So they do have arms, but they're just at 0 scale. And then I just colored them differently to look like Pikmin a bit. And they just have idle and run animations. There you go. So instead of hunting around for something that looks suitable, yeah, just use a free, I think it's called Puppet Boy. And then I just set the scale of the arms to 0. And they look kind of cute when they're running around. Yeah. And then this monster over here, there is a monster model underneath that. You can see it popping out a little bit. I added these big capsules for collision purposes, and then I thought, he looks simple. I'll just keep him like that. So the idea is that that is roughly the scale of the monsters that you'll be helping. Or maybe this is like a beginner level monster, and maybe more epic ones in later levels, maybe double the size, so that moving around them and pulling out parts and cleaning parts of them, like feeding them or whatever, adding things to them, using your characters to add parts to the monster. That's a really key part of this game. So like you might have to wait for the monster to be at the right location in the level, and then you'll be there waiting with your minions, and then you can throw your minions onto the monster, and they might, scrub the dirt off or pull out a spear, stuff like that. And the monster's just on patrol using, I think this is not on my list, pathfinding. So there is a nav mesh on this terrain using the A-Star pathfinding project. And the minions and this monster, they are using pathfinding. And the monster is just patrolling around the level. And he's got footsteps too. Footstep sounds. That's what you can hear. It just adds a little bit of life to the level while I'm working on other stuff. And it's also scale. So yeah, the monster patrols the area. I made a simple version of the minions that follow, and that was before I even did implement controls. So they were just always following, but now they have controls, so I can stop them following me. All right, I did this terrain here just to help me with the characters moving around and make sure that I'm not like going the wrong way with the way that they move. I wanted to have terrain. Now I'm not sure if I'll be using terrain or something more tile based. Probably terrain. I've seen some good Unity games that do it. And this area of development is really new to me. I've not really made many levels. So when I get to that point, have no fear. Just give it a go. Alright, so I did the reorienting camera. Basically, whichever way you're facing, then you press shift. It'll put the camera behind. I moved the camera offset a little bit so you can see how the character is on the left a little bit. And that's because I really wanted the aiming reticle to be in the middle of the screen. So I moved the character left a little so that it's out of the way. Alright. Targeting, yeah, so I did this reticle. You can see that dot in the middle of the screen. Now I know in Pikmin the camera is pretty mostly fixed, even though you can rotate it. When you play the game in Pikmin, you don't move the camera that much. However, in my game, the camera and the targeting, they are connected. So you always have to move the camera. It's similar to an FPS in that way. And I mean, with the success of Fortnite having third-person aiming controls, I'm sure that I can, like my audience won't be that turned off by it. And I can also look to other games to get ideas for how to control. So yeah, that's the aiming reticle. It uses physics to find a surface, and then you can see how it curves around the surface. So that's just showing that that it's attached to that. And then, yep, so I did the aiming. You can see you can aim on that. You could run next to the monster and aim under its belly and stuff like that. Next, experiment with camera and scale. So that's where I was like thinking about how big is the character, how big are the minions, how big are the monsters, how fast does the character move, just things like that. Interact with world object. Okay, so this was fairly new for me because until now I had worked in VR where everything was an object in the world. But now I'm in this place where the game is partially a UI layer and partially a world layer. So I was cautious to not just dive straight in and do interactables the way I did them in VR. And in the end, I did end up, it is quite similar to what I did in VR. So the player, I'll show you. The player has an invisible sphere in front of it. And when that sphere is overlapping with a interactable world object, then that's interactable and you can press a button and something will happen. To get the system ready, all I did was have it say selected down the bottom. So you can see how it says in the debug area, selected. So that's all I got. And then when you move away, it deselects. Let's get rid of this blue. And then the modal UI. So the game state, the game has a few states such as loading, play, pause, and those were all pretty straightforward. So play is time is on and things are happening. You usually have full control of everything, that's play. Pause obviously is that. And then I was like, well, what happens when you want to like prompt the player and ask them if they want to do something? It's not like I was going to have a new custom UI or state every time that happened, because here's one example. Portal, do you want to go? But what about like just anything? Like, do you want to save, or do you want to accept an item? Just, you know, I knew there would be a lot of situations where I would want kind of a pop-up with some buttons. So what I did was I created one state called modal state, and then other game entities can become a controller for that state. So the modal state provides this layout, and then it gets a controller, which then has control of what's within the layout. Like, it can set the text and what happens when you press buttons. And then ultimately to release that modal state so that the game state can continue. It can also pause. So optionally, if I wanted the portal to, which one says portal A? If I wanted the modal to pause the game, I can do that. So you can see all the guys have stopped and the footsteps have stopped. So that's the modal. Fixed a bug. Set up all of those portals so you can go to each level. Added a level boundary and a kill box. So the level, it was just something that I thought just add it for safety for now, but pretty much I surrounded the level in these colliders around all around the sides, and then the top and the bottom colliders will respawn the player. So just on the odd chance that the player falls through the world or gets flung into the sky, then the player will respawn. And obviously I would have something more robust later. I just thought I'd just tick something off the list while I was thinking about it. All right, what else? Minion pooling. So I already did have an entity pooling system, and all I had to do was convert the minions into an entity that could be pooled. So basically what that means is that there's a pool of that type of prefab, and then anytime you want to spawn one of those prefabs, you can reuse one that already exists instead of creating a new one. And you can see that there are lots here. That's I was using this as an example of minion C. Let's just imagine that I had to pre-warm that with 100 minions. Okay. Yep, so I added that. And then the other tricky thing was you can see in this scene how I have minions already on the map. And my pooling system didn't account for entities that were present in the scene. And then there was a little bit of trickiness about having a reference to this instance's prefab so that it knew which pool it belongs in. But it's all worked out now. So basically I can despawn, I can play the game, and those minions, when the level is loaded, those minions will be added to the pool. And then from then on, they're just like every other minion in the pool. They can be despawned or reused. Yeah, so that was good. Not as difficult as I thought. I renamed player input along the way. I bought a outlining plugin. So because the Unity Asset Store is on sale at the moment, I saw that an outlining plugin that would let me apply outlines to objects, such as this yellow one. It looked good, it had good reviews, and I knew that it was something that I would need later on. So I bought it. And then I implemented it on the portal here so that when you are hovering, it has that outline. And I know that will be useful. So next, until this point, I just had a placeholder player character, and the player wasn't doing anything yet. It was just moving. So it's time to wrangle that, and I created some player states. So the player has a few states, and when performance doesn't matter that much, or I need a lot of configuration, I decide to put the states as mono behaviors, just so that I can put in some properties and things like that. So the player has a few states using state machine. So it can be idle, it can be recalling. So recall is what I call this thing. When you're like calling the minions to you, that circle, like the whistle. And then the next other states are some things are not set up yet. So hold is not set up, throw is not set up, disband. So it's just a very short state where when you press the disband button, they disband. Nothing else happens. But I just thought I'd do that in case there was extra logic or time that I wanted to add there. There's the jump state, which is technically the airborne state. And I wanted it so that when you're airborne, you can't enter other states. I added that later. And that's all the states at the moment. In the future, I'll probably have a state like controlled by scene or cinematic, something like that. Dazed, I don't know, swimming, things like that. But for right now, I think I've got all the states that I need to create the core gameplay. All right. And then I have minion states as well. So minions can be idle. That just means that they're standing still, or they can be following. There's no throw. I was starting to get close to doing the throwing state. And then the next one would be the working state when they're operating like a task. So my goal probably for the next video will be so that you can select your minions and then you can throw them. And if you throw them onto or near a work task, then they will start doing it. So my idea would be that there's like a dirty patch on the monster. You can throw the minion onto it. They'll latch on and start working until it's complete, and then they'll drop off and go idle. Something like that. That's the first use case that I'll do. It's not implemented yet. But then I did the recall skill, which just pretty much uses the reticle, creates this sphere collider, and then does an overlap test so that when you're overlapping a minion and the minion wasn't already in your group, then the minion will follow you like that. And then the minion following state just means that they follow the player. And then the disband action, which they just go back to idle. And I'm calling the skill. I wanted to use action, but there's already action has meaning in C#, so I didn't use the word action. So the things that the player can do that aren't overlapping, I've called them skills. I added some sound effects, so you can hear some placeholder sound effects for recall. And when the minion gets recalled, so they have the little pop sound when they join you, and then when you disband. That's it. Okay, and then device detection. So basically I know what device you're using, like what control device, keyboard or gamepad. And then just a quick thing to despawn all minions on unload. That's just because when you leave the level, I need to despawn the minions. That was pretty simple. And then the last thing that I've been working on, took a few hours, was the control hints system. So you can see down the bottom right there. Maybe I can make this bigger. And maximize that, take it out, and then bring it over. Yeah, a bit bigger. So you can see down the bottom right, there are the 3 main controls, which are for the minions. You got the throw, recall, and disband, and it shows the icon. And those are kind of dynamic, so that they can be changed. Not that there's not binding yet, but what I mean is that when you're using the gamepad, you can see how I'm using the gamepad right now, and all of the control icons have changed. And I'm not like focusing on gamepad at the moment, but I want to make sure that my core gameplay does work with it. So that's why I just come back and check it every now and then. And then when you switch, if you're using the keyboard and mouse, you can see the icons change back. So that was the first thing, was to get the icons working. Let's just disband them. And then you can see that I'll use space as an example. So space is jump. And when you're jumping, you can't recall. And the input icon updates. And that happens for most things. So right now I don't have any minions, so I can't throw, I can't disband. Oh, it's making the sound effect, but I have nothing to disband. But then when I have minions, you can see now I can disband. And when I click it, now I have no minions. And then the other thing is that the words that are associated with those actions can also be controlled depending on the context. So see how the E button, it's inactive. So E is like a utility kind of action, like not used very often. But when you're near the interactable, you can see how it says use portal. And that's because the portal is telling the control context what will happen if you press it. Okay, so it's kind of spaghetti-ish, and I don't want to stay on it for too long, so I will leave it mostly as it is, even if I see issues with it, until much later in the project. Something I've been doing is writing down some kind of motivational things. And one of the things that I realized is that hard-coded spaghetti is better than abstract, empty bowl, because I haven't made a game for 3 years, and in that time I have been messing around with code a lot and learning a lot and following best practices and a lot of abstraction stuff. But I'm just not that good. So for me, I don't mind if it's hard-coded and a little bit like spaghetti or lots of spaghetti. Meaning that instead of using an abstraction, I'm using a lot more code. That's okay with me. Because the main problem is that when I get to this abstraction and I abstract too much stuff, it gets hard for me to follow. And then I don't keep going. And I end up with nothing. Just an empty bowl. So that's something that I wrote down. Oh, another thing that I wrote down for motivation is because I've used it a little bit in the past, and it was making me lazy. It was outsourcing my creativity. It was letting my skills atrophy. Like, for example, I did a prototype where I could attach objects to a skin mesh renderer using like the vertices. And even though it was animated, I could move an object in the scene so it looked like it was stuck to it. And that was cool. And it's still on my channel. However, I think that's something that I could do myself, and I should. And yeah, I just think that you're not paying for something that a robot made, because where's the soul in that? You should play something that a person made, because that's the experience that I'm trying to give you. And I don't care if it takes longer or if it's a bit more janky. I mean, AI would be janky anyway. But as long as it's something that I made and not something that I just asked a computer to make. All right. So I just finished jump. So my process here is that I have a to-do list, a doing, and a done. And I made the text really, really big because in the past I've fallen in the trap of making 100 tasks and ideas and then getting overwhelmed and sometimes like picking the ones that don't matter. And I'm not doing that. So what I'm doing is keeping the text really big so that I have a visual limit, and also a very big focus on what I'm doing so that I don't take too many things on at one time. And yeah, so that's my dev update for Slugwitch, a game about minions and helping monsters. Bye.